Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. And today we are discussing the FP Journe Centigraphe Souverain, and this is the boutique edition, the model with a boutique exclusive, really boutique and espace exclusive combination of a blackened gold dial and a 6N red gold case. The model, as you see it here, was available from 2010 to 2016, and the Centigraphe Souverain as a model line was discontinued in 2018. So 40 millimeters in diameter, 10.8 millimeters thick as I measure it, from lug tip to lug tip, 48.3 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The watch is hefty, substantial, and that's because it's got a gold dial, a gold case, and a solid gold movement of large caliber on the back. But first, let's take a look on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. Comfortable. I would say this watch would wear fine on a wrist as small as 14 to 15 centimeters circumference. 14 if your wrist is flat across the top. It is fairly thin, and with a domed bezel, it'll slide easily underneath a dress cuff. We have a strap here, gloss, with a little bit of distress in the grain of the high gloss treatment. You can see some of the stress lines that have been factored in the tanning process and the working process. You can see folded edge, monotone stitch, small round scale alligator on the bottom, demonstrating the latest thinking in high-end straps, with gator on the bottom, ensuring a longer lasting strap when it's used in place of calfskin. Lugs on Journe watches are always drilled as close to the case as possible to move the pivot centers in for better small wrist fit, and as a result, a curved spring bore is used to prevent any impediment to the motion of the strap, and we have pull tabs that allow you to pop the strap off the case without any requirement for tools. Now we have an optional upgrade here, which is the Journe factory deployant clasp. It is a single fold, friction fit clasp that offers a little bit more protection against dropping your watch than the standard pin buckle, and of course with more gold adds to the opulence of the watch. This is a 4-figure accessory in terms of what you'd pay in euros or francs to buy, heck, dollars for that matter as well. So it's a nice thing to have as an upgrade over the standard pin buckle. Taking a look at the case, Journe's case is immediately recognizable, where we have more or less symmetrical case back and bezel domed with flanges that define the mid case. We have a blended lug profile with lugs that turn down 90 degrees from the horizontal of the case band. And we have a patented rocker system that actually gives you twin pusher chronograph capability, so you can stop and then restart, but it works like a mono pusher where just one finger can quickly operate the two functions. So we also have a crown now. This is one of the two patented elements. The other relates to the barrel at center on the back. We'll talk about that in a moment. But this rocker system is one of the two patented elements. The crown's a bit weird. When flush to the case, it doesn't do anything. One position out, it now winds the watch, and then two positions out, you can set the time. So this case is what Journe describes as 6N. So if you've seen red gold, this is redder than red. The dial features a polished steel bezel framing the sub-registers, and then a blackened gold and gilt rose gold printed primary dial. You can see that outboard. He invented and made it, and he will not cease to remind you of that. We have Journe's distinctive hands on the dial. A little bit curiously, this is quoted as being in 5N, so there is a contrast between that red gold and this red gold. Now inside of this polished triple bezel framing the registers, we have a 1-second dial, a 20-second dial, and a 10-minute dial. And the idea here being that you could stop that seconds hand, that foudroyant, in any one of 100 positions, because there is a secondary 100 beat per second escapement, and so Centigraphe, 100 positions, 1/100th of a second, that's how that works. Taking a quick look at the dial too, you can see that each one of these contains tachymetric scales, so you can gauge the speed of an object going between 36,000 and 6 kilometers per hour. Now, when the chronograph's running, it only has a power reserve of 24 hours, but with the largest register being 10 minutes, that shouldn't be a problem. The manual wind watch has a power reserve of 80 hours if you leave the chronograph off. By the way, resetting this watch is a huge piece of horological theater, and I never get tired of it. Turning it all over, caliber 1506. Now, the Centigraphe Souverain, this watch here, won the GPHG Aiguille d'Or, I believe in 2007. That is Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking, and it was the tail end of an era in which FP Journe absolutely dominated the GPHG. And this was one of, I believe, 3 Aiguille d'Or wins, his overall wins Best Picture at the Oscars of watchmaking. The movement's made of solid gold, and it's large. So 34.4 millimeters in diameter. The barrel sits at center. The time, that is the hours and the minutes, drives off the toothed edge of the barrel right there, and then the arbor of the barrel, the axle down the center on the opposite side of the barrel, it drives the chronograph. The idea here being that you will not actually lose balance amplitude because you have two separate drivetrains rather than driving the chronograph off the fourth wheel of the movement, as is commonly done. Journe creates two parallel drivetrains, so when you start the chronograph, the watch does not slow down as a result, and that dual train system is the subject of the second patent filed for this watch. Taking a quick look, the 50 joule movement is large and in charge, 15 being the size in French ligne, 06 being the year it went into production, and then we've got the balance, which is huge, beating away at 3 hertz. Though you can't see it, there's a 50 hertz secondary escapement, or 100 beats per second, that powers the foudroyant in the 1/10 of a second, 1/100th of a second system. This is a free-sprung balance, so it is both easier to adjust precisely and also more shock resistant, and that its timing characteristics cannot be changed by shock. We have a combination of circular Côte de Genève, solarization on the crown wheel core, satination on the wheels. You can see that we've got beveling on the edge of the bridges, and then engine turning on the base plate. If you love this watch, which is 30 meters water resistant and discontinued, please reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.